If you were to queue for a game and join a server right now, and you mentioned Kenny S or Shroud, the chances are most people in the server would more than likely know who you're talking about. While a player like Shroud has focused more towards being a content creator, both Shroud and Kenny S have left an imprint on the gaming community. And the reason why most people in the Valorant and CS community would recognize the names is not just the content creation, but it's the level that they both play at. All kinds of players, casual to aspiring future pros, seek to learn what the people at the top are doing to play the absolute best that they can. While entertainment in this business will always be important, the competitive aspect will always be what transcends it. I'm urnotjustin, and today I wanted to talk about if the perfect crosshair exists. In this video, we're going to be learning about what the crosshair actually does for us. We're going to take a look at which crosshair some of the pros use. I'm going to show you example crosshairs and teach you a few little things along the way. And in short, to answer the question if the best crosshair really exists, the answer is not quite. When examining crosshairs and if the perfect one really exists, or perhaps looking for one that fits you the best, you may seek out your favorite pro players, streamers, or content creators, so you yourself can try to play more like they do. As a disclaimer, I'm getting ready to show you guys different crosshairs from different players. These are all subject to change. None of them are concrete. And you could be watching any of these people at any time, and maybe you'll see this crosshair or maybe you won't. At any given time, you could watch one of Noted's videos and notice that he's using a multitude of crosshairs, or even no crosshair. Shroud's crosshair is very reminiscent of Counter-Strike Go, something easy to keep up with, easy to see through. In my opinion, this is a very general crosshair that a lot of players could utilize and have no issues with. Scream will utilize the classic dot, the dot being really good for getting rid of pixel clusters, for a maximum amount of clarity and insurance that you'll see and hit your target. Sinatra's crosshair will utilize both aspects of that, with his crosshair being notably visible while keeping its clutter to a minimum. In the description, I'll include several links to several websites showing you all of the crosshairs that I listed here and more. Bear in mind, there are enough websites and crosshairs to make your head spin, but if you want to have a few references like the ones that I use in this video, they will be there in the description for you. And to answer an important question for you, in my previous videos, I've been getting asked quite a bit what my crosshair is, and these are my settings for it. While I can't entirely recommend this, I can tell you my insight on why I chose this crosshair. As we've been learning about right now in this very video, you may want to have a relatively visible crosshair so you can aim better with it. However, at the same time, I don't want something obnoxious and large covering my screen, making it harder for me to see people. More so, harder to adjust the aim to the head. I want a visible crosshair that I can hover over somebody's head to click. That's where I came up with this idea. A circle. Like the dot, it has very little clutter, but if I were to use the dot, it would be hard to keep track of on my screen because of how tiny it is, making the circle be a happy median for me. I do not play with movement or firing error on, but I do play with fade to firing error. A lot of players will recommend keeping your crosshair static. I can keep my crosshair static while being able to see when I'm spraying too much by keeping the fade to fire error on. Moving forward with the video. In a previous video, I discussed why some pros sit so close to their monitors, and we dissected the concept of optimizing your gameplay to be the very best and preference, which is what choosing your crosshair comes down to, is optimizing and preference. But the core thing to understand about your crosshair is that crosshairs are the vehicle that'll deliver your mouse directly to the headshots you're looking for. Your crosshair merely exists as a center point for your screen, and everything that follows after that is adjustment and spray control. And for beginners, based off of the research that I've been doing on this topic, and based off of my own personal experience, I would recommend using the default crosshair. Switch to the default crosshair, have firing and movement error on, and try to get a feel for the spray patterns of every weapon and how your accuracy is impacted on moving. By having firing error on, you can learn a general idea of where your bullets are going when you're spraying, and by having movement error on, you can see where your shots are going based on standing still, walking, and moving at full speed. I read that using the default crosshair is a lot like using training wheels. Once you feel comfortable, you can go and find something that works the best for you, and you can make it your own. I know that in this video we're kind of moving a little bit fast, but to summarize everything briefly, to pick the best crosshair possible, you would have to consider if you can see your target, if you can easily see a target through your crosshair, and how intrusive is your crosshair's color and size. And with all of those things in mind, something that you also have to take account for is your level of experience in knowing the spray and recoil of every gun. If you're just beginning, you might not understand it, and I would recommend playing with firing error and movement error on. And now I'd like to move forward again, seeing as we've covered most of the technical stuff, and we're going to bring it over to something that's a little bit more fun, and that is examples of bad crosshairs. You may have seen in my last video that I was spectating this individual who had this crosshair, and based off of everything that we've just talked about in this video, can you spot what's wrong with it? I'll begin. We learned that you don't want something that's too big. This is a giant yellow cross in the middle of his screen with fat bits at the end of it for his movement error that move out and in constantly. That's very distracting, and if you saw somebody, they would be hard to aim at. Furthermore, the bulk of this crosshair being the long lines, it doesn't do anything for him. It's not going to make aiming at somebody's head be easier. It's not going to make aiming at somebody's body be easier, at least in a game like Valorant. Players like Kenny S have had crosshairs that were optimal for opping. However, it doesn't really apply to this situation. And I know that it's bothering you. I know that you've noticed and it's on your mind, The dot in the center is not quite in the center. And just recently, actually, I discovered this. Mixing even and odd numbered thicknesses such as 1 pixel dot and 2 pixel inner lines will create visual misalignment. Since displays have an even number of pixels and crosshairs are rendered pixel perfect, odd thickness elements must be anchored slightly off visual center. Alignment of odd numbered thickness has no negative effect on accuracy. To avoid misalignment, be sure to use all even 246 or all odd 135 thickness elements. And see, that's a very interesting thing to know. I bet you a lot of players don't know that. I certainly didn't know it. This player probably didn't know it. And the reason I like to make these videos is not that I'm trying to say that I'm a good player, because I'm not. I'm just somebody who enjoys the game, and I try to make these videos so I can learn with you. And I can research things and share with you what I got from it. You don't need to want to be a pro to optimize your game better. Right now we're at the halfway point of the video and we're slowly about to go home. If you've made it this far into the video, leave a comment about Kenny S. But to move forward, I've showed you guys what could be optimal and how you can pick a better crosshair that would suit you better. I've shown you example crosshairs that can be good, and I've shown you an example crosshair that can be bad. But what if we went all the way to the other end and I deliberately chose a terrible crosshair? I was just experimenting in this clip and I had my mic unmuted, and this laughter that you're about to hear is me laughing at absolutely how ridiculous this is. Let's take a look. So obviously that's a little bit ridiculous. I cannot imagine of anybody unironically playing on this for anything other than a joke, or maybe they're pulling a prank on their friend or something like that. But theoretically speaking, there may just be at least one person out there that plays like this because this is their optimal way of playing. Remember, this all comes down to preference, and you should play what you're most comfortable with. But to point out the obvious stuff that we learned in this video, the crosshair is too big. You cannot see anything behind it. The movement error is bad, but much worse because of how massive it is. So if I move or fire in a way that is uncomplimentary, then my whole screen essentially is shaking. But yeah, that's gonna do it. And I'm going to leave you guys off with a challenge. I challenge you guys watching this. If this video gets 2,000 likes, I will do an entire video where I'm using that crosshair in multiple games. I hope that you're able to learn something from this video and will be able to utilize it to help you become a better player. If you did enjoy it, like it. If you're new here, subscribe. And as always, I'm Justin, and you're not, and I'll see you in the next one.